Welcome to part 3 of the Trinity Outreach Corporation's I Was Here program discussion panel. If you missed the first 2 parts, we did cover race and how race affects the way that we respond to ourselves and each other. We also talked about structural racism and how it is incorporated or how it's manifested into social, academic, and economic policy. And now during part 3, we're going to talk about how can we get other races involved, and what are the solutions to attacking or to overcoming structural racism. So again, we're back with our panel. So you guys can introduce yourself.
I'm Pastor Tarvis Brown, the Bridge International, Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Okay.
My name is Tabari Daniels, broadcaster, entrepreneur, owner of the Almanet Hotel and Bistro, where we're hosting the panel.
Keith Brown, I'm the wireless entrepreneur.
Yes. Okay, cool. Again, getting right into it. How can we get other people involved in these conversations?
Well, I think when it comes to having conversations like this, you know, race is that elephant in the room.
Right.
You know, typically when African Americans initiate the conversation, then unfortunately there's this feel of, oh gosh, here comes the angry black guy conversation. Oh no, what is Tyrone gonna say? You know. So I think that more people need to participate, but I think more people need to stop prejudging the conversation.
Right.
We need to be honest. It is what it is.
Right.
There is some issues with racism. Truth be told, it's always going to be an issue with racism. But the thing is, I think we have to have a more evolved talk about racism. You know, I was just talking to a beautiful woman a little earlier, and she was saying that racism in previous generations, previous to mine, was more behavioral, you know, situation. Now it's more of a mental, you know, a mental thing, because you don't have to worry about seeing a colored sign, and it's not as blatant, you know, about how you have to carry yourself physically. So I think if we evolve the conversation about race, instead of, oh, it's a black thing, it's a white thing, but instead of, okay, why is black synonymous with this?
Right.
Why is white synonymous with that? Then you get more down to maybe it has more to do with have and have not instead of black and white.
Right.
You know, I hope I'm not jumping ahead, but I know we're going to talk about some privileges of races later on. But sometimes those privileges are based on race because people perceive other races to be more successful.
Right.
You know, people perceive other races to be more cultured. And unfortunately, African Americans, even if you are as successful as the men in this room, we have to deal with first that prejudgment of, is this the angry black guy I'm dealing with? Okay, this isn't the angry black guy. Is this the guy with some sort of problem with his credit?
Right.
No, okay. Well, is this the guy that didn't have enough education?
Right.
As African American men especially, we always have to prove ourselves first.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, unfortunately, most of the institutions aren't based in African American, aren't ethnic, or at the very least, minority savvy when it comes to dealing with our culture and other cultures. So I think when it comes to wrap things up, I don't know how many talk all over the place, but I think to get more people involved in the conversation, and more people need to stop prejudging the conversation.
Right.
You know, when somebody brings up race, don't just prejudge like, oh, it's just some myth. Oh, the black guy saying it, so it's got to be his usual spiel about what's going on with race. Instead of prejudging that, to look at that, instead look at it as, okay, wait a minute, why is he saying this? What are the factors that brought about the situation?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think when it comes to what's happening with the Trayvon Martin situation, when he was initially come out, it was the whole issue of, okay, another black guy is shot. You know, oh, was he smoking?
Right.
He had drugs in his pocket.
Yeah.
Oh well, what do you expect?
Right.
You know.
Right.
But I think that once we get to a point where we stop prejudging the conversation about race, then we can get to the solutions and some of the factors into why we have the problems that we have.
Right.
Okay. Mr. Keith Brown, how can we get other races involved in this topic?
Well, being a country as diversified as the United States is, of course, I think we've been the other race along with anybody else in the country. And so immediately when the everyday person hears racism, it's black and white. But it's so much more than that. Hispanics, largest growing population in the United States, they experience racism.
Right.
You know what I mean? It behooves them to get involved in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Asian American have privileges, and there are some things that privilege Asian Americans, and there are some things that they fall in the same boat. You know what I mean? And so our Eastern brothers, same thing. I mean, with what's going on from the East and the problems we have, they're experiencing a lot of prejudice. You know what I'm saying? So it behooves everybody to talk about it, because at the end of the day, a better Hispanic community is a better America. A better Asian community is a better America, and so on and so on. You know? So, number one, letting all of those races realize that, you know what I'm saying, bring you to the table. And just to touch on what Tabari said, like, it can't be this taboo thing. Like, you can't talk about it because that conversation is gonna go to some bad place. You know what I'm saying? We got problems with government spending. You know what I mean? Just like the problem is with racism. It has to be looked at as one of those things, and there's always going to be an argument about where the government should be spending the money at. But we can talk about that openly. There are natural prejudices in people's head, so that's always going to exist. So it has to become one of those things, not this taboo subject that we can't talk about in either way, that we just can't. You can't blame a race for the condition of your race. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you can't act like it doesn't exist. You know what I mean? And I just think opening up the dialogue and making it a thing that's not taboo, and it's one of the problems amongst other problems, brings other people to the table.
What about you?
Well, I just want to piggyback off of Mr. Brown and the fact that we're just looking for me, a better America. So better communities do present a better America. So the invitation to panels like this is one of the key things that we can do to raise awareness. Listen, it's not about, you know, although we have experienced it probably a little longer than most ethnic groups, it is a thing that's in America. It's one of our issues that we've got to fix if we're going to move forward and sustain the community of America, or else we're going to destroy ourselves. So we can't ignore it. It's everybody that lives here, that's in America, that lives under the auspice of freedom in America, needs to figure out what we're going to do about this, because it's going to destroy us, hinder us. There's no future generation after this. This is not going to get better. This is only going to do what it's designed to do, like a cancer. If it's not treated, it's going to take us out of here.
And I like the place where it has come, and that is to the institutional. I mean, the institution. And my point in that is, we're not angry black men.
No.
We're not saying white people, it's your fault. We're not saying that it's your fault why we don't pay our bills, or it's your fault why, you know, whatever. But it is getting down to the nitty gritty, and it's the last thing that's left. And that is the way we live, or the laws that rule the land. And at this point, again, we understand that there are people on the Hill, or people in Capitol Hill, that look out for our interests. But it's some laws that historically aren't here for us. So what I think, what I would like to see from other races is join in an honest way in the conversation. We don't say what you think we want. I really want to know, how do you feel? You know what I mean? How do you feel about this? You know, if you really think that we have it bad in certain areas upon us, say that. And to those African Americans, don't get mad. We ain't here for that. You know, I think that that's the thing that'll move us forward.
You know what though? I hate to say this, but I'm going to be honest with you. I think that that won't happen until it's some sort of profit, something to be made.
Really?
People are never really honest. If you notice, people are never really honest until they're going to benefit from it. Until there's some sort of money to be made, until there's some sort of some sort of position of strength where they come off as the moral compass, like, well, no,
Yeah,
that's
they take
wrong,
the
and
moral
they can take the moral high ground. I think when some people talk about race, you know, they get to a point to where it's like, I'm not sure if I can move that route because I don't want to say something that's unpopular,
Right.
and then, of course it's going to affect the bottom line.
Right.
I think that at some point, African Americans need to say, I don't care what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
This is how we feel. This is how we define ourselves, and we're going to act accordingly.
Right.
We're going to define ourselves in a positive way, and we're going to get the rest of the world to start portraying us
Right.
in a positive way, because we're not going to participate if it's in a negative way.
Right.
But I see so much with some of the other ethnic groups, Native Americans, Jews, and even Asians to an extent. They don't, quote unquote, sell out. They won't play that part of allowing Hollywood or music and other forms of media to continue to perpetuate that
Absolutely.
negative image.
Absolutely.
You know, just to give you some examples, China came out with the new Iron Man movie and told them their main villain, the Mandarin, that's normally played by an Asian character, couldn't be played by a Chinese person. That's out.
Right.
So Hollywood had to be like, okay, well, shoot, we're going to use it. We're going to use a regular British actor this
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Totally changed the whole idea of the character at that point.
Right.
You never really see Native Americans, for example. They're such a strong presence with them politically, to where in the new Lone Ranger movie, Johnny Depp is playing the part in Tonto, because Tonto initially was more of a racial character.
Right.
But now, because of their strong political presence, there is no Native American to play that part. No full, okay, this person is speaking on the part of Native Americans. Now Hollywood has said, okay, you know, you guys are a political presence. We're going to get Johnny Depp to play the form of a traditionally Native American character.
Right, that's a good point. And I think it's also interesting that our African brothers, like the true Africans, I had the I would want to say the pleasure of working for a Nigerian when I worked in DC. But it was interesting that they did keep true to those traditions within their culture, and how not so true they kept it, or not so real they kept it with African Americans. And it's almost kind of like they immediately want to disassociate that I'm not from here, I'm African. And we have our own set of, basically our own culture, and it's totally separate from their culture. It's almost kind of in a way in which they don't respect it.
Right.
But
it's because we don't respect it.
Right.
Because we don't respect it.
You know, we've got to get
Yeah.
to a point as African Americans
Yeah.
to where we control the aesthetic value of our culture.
Right.
Absolutely.
We control what is the right thing to do, or
Right.
what is presentable, or what is glamorous about our culture,
Right.
Right.
instead of every other magazine or show
Yeah.
saying, okay, no, you're not
This is
beautiful
what it
because your
literally
hair
is.
isn't straight enough.
Right.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
you're not beautiful because you're not thin enough.
Right.
You got to Photoshop. You're behind because it's just too plump and
Right.
full.
Right.
We've got to say, no. This is beautiful for us. Now, if
Right.
you want to, if you think it's beautiful too, then that's great.
Right.
But
Right.
we're not going to participate,
Right.
because we're not going to participate in your form of socially restructuring for the sake of us trying to assimilate
Absolutely.
into,
Right.
into your structure.
Right.
We'd be good
Right.
without it.
Right.
Yeah.
We do need more people to take that stand,
And-
because when they view us that we're talking Africans, that is the reason. Is because, you know, what is our value system? I don't think we've taken enough time to step back and look at what are we representing today? What are we giving off to the world as what our standard is? What, you know, we're just not good enough. We are. You know, I mean, my goodness, they have shows that come out that let us know that we're the biggest promoter of, you know, human hair and all this kind of stuff. So what God blessed us with, we don't see it as beautiful anymore. We have to alter it in all kind of ways for it to be accepted. So anybody that is respectable to their culture, you know, don't see us as respecting, because it appears that we don't, because we're so busy trying to make it look like what everybody accepts.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Well, you know, I just think that appearance stuff has its place, right? But white people get tans.
Yeah.
So are they happy with You know what I'm saying? Are they? I mean, tanning is a big business.
Yeah, it is.
They're trying to get darker. And here's something I found interesting. Cubans. In Cuba, there's black Cubans and white Cubans. They have the same stuff going on over there.
Right.
Yeah.
What makes color like that? I mean, like, so what I'm saying is that just an African American thing where we are okay, they say this looks good, that looks good, that looks good. Okay, well then if it's why are white people tanning? Why do black people trying to get lighter? You know what I'm saying? The appearance thing isn't so much to me because I see that playing out in other parts of the world and in other races besides ours. Right. I think that we have to do a better job with our own self.
Right.
Period. And I agree with you when you say that we have to define what we are, but you can't say that without saying there has been a systematic thing put in place to make those things not attractive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They used to be attractive.
Right. Right.
But now when that attractiveness is seen as a source of strength for us and a heritage for us, you know, we got to take that down as much as we can. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that has systematically happened. Yeah. So you have to systematically get back to that.
Right. And even to get a little bit more specific, I mean, we can directly relate that to, what is it, the early 70s or whatever with the Black Panther Party.
The whole civil rights movement.
Yeah, just the whole thing when you had that whole Black Power movement and that whole surge of loving and being proud of who you were and what, you know, God blessed you with. Exactly. And then again, over time, when you say systematic, for those people that might disagree, over time there were elements outside of our culture that were strategically placed, you know what I mean, within the culture to try to dismantle it. Again, we do share that responsibility because, again, I'm not gonna get specific, but when, you know, when the letters were going back and forth between the parties, like men, they should have met and discussed that instead of assuming and fight. But there was a systematic approach to dismantle that intentionally. So I think that those are the types of things too that's important for African Americans to understand, that you are and you can be successful. Even when you look at Black Wall Street, you know what happened in Oklahoma, people just burning down the whole town. These people that created their own communities were very, very wealthy communities at the time. You know what I mean? And outside forces came in and dismantled that. So it's what I liked about what you said was today. Like how can we do that today and be proud of what we have right now? And that's for all the kids or all of the younger people that don't necessarily embrace education, or they don't think that just because I can get to a point and have a good job, it don't matter if it's taking out the trash. I could be a chef, I could be a real estate person, I could be an attorney, I could do engineering, you know, any job, but to be a responsible person that can get educated or not, but learn a trade and go out there and work and contribute to society.
Just be a positive number.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Just contribute.
Right.
Yeah. Just be a positive. Start right there.
Right there.
Just don't hurt us.
Yeah. Don't hurt us.
Just be a positive number, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
if we can get everybody as a positive, that's positive.
Right. That's good.
And then we can go from there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I like the question you raised about the difference between the tan and I guess per se the weave. Well, now typically we could look at it from this, because the one that wants to tan, when we're talking about what we look like, I think those variables play different in each different ethnic group.
Okay.
You know, and the reason why I say that is because I think, let's speak from our perspective, I think we don't know enough of who we are. So when we're doing it, we're trying to fit in somewhere. Their culture and their values have been instilled in them from day one, so the tan doesn't change one way or another about who they are as a group of people. It just makes this woman feel, you know, what she wants to feel about herself.
Good point.
We're trying to find identity through a lot of these things because we're not happy with who we are and what we look like.
Well, I agree, and I think that's because the history that we're taught is American history. And that's just not where we came from.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But there are so many things that's a part of American history that we did. Like, again, I said, that's not at the forefront. These are not in the history books.
You're so,
you know what I'm saying?
So right.
And so those are the things that makes a group feel secure in themselves and another group not feel so secure. You know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right. We just had the opportunity to go to the National Civil Rights Conference in Meridian, and I took my daughter. And now, what just unbeknownst to me, I had no idea of the rich heritage that Mississippi black women played in the civil rights movement. And long story short, these 5 girls went one way, and a weekend was completely changed in their thinking. And so with what you're saying, because Fannie Lou Hamer, my daughter, you know, just out of her mouth said, "That's a beautiful lady." Well, that blessed me because everybody know that Fannie Lou Hamer's proportion. You know, it's not typically what you see in a magazine today that called beautiful, but my daughter viewed her as a beautiful lady. I'm yet to find out to what depth and what level are you saying that, but just for that to come out of your mouth and be related to it, and I mean, was just kept rehearsing it. I believe that's a beautiful, in my opinion, that's a beautiful lady. She kept saying that, but we exposed her to something other than what beauty is to us.
She knows what's behind that face.
Absolutely.
That's what's beautiful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I believe the whole thing was stemming from. And so I think we have to be, you know, more key at doing that. You know what I'm saying?
That history, that education of yourself takes you to the point that he's talking about. That's what makes you be steadfast and stand strong in get straight right here. I ain't what y'all talking about. I'm not tripping on that. When you know that, that's what gets you to that place.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, Tabari, earlier you touched on privilege a little bit. Yeah. So I mean, you know, there is a thing people like to refer to as white privilege. I mean, have you had any experiences with white privilege? Is it a thing, or is it a myth?
You know, to be totally honest, I believe that before we get into race, I think those who have automatically have the privileges.
Right.
Those, if you got access and you got awareness, then you're gonna have privilege.
So it's more of a have and have not thing than just only a race thing.
Right. Well, I think it stems from that, but then it goes into race because African Americans had such a late start in getting to the point where we become part of the haves.
Right.
You know, throw in slavery, throw in the civil rights movement and everything else. It is what it is. So you have a smaller number of black halves or ethnic halves, Hispanic halves, whatever halves. So those who are typically in positions where they do have are typically white. So on face value, it looks like white people have all the privileges. But let's face it, some of those same people who just so happen to be white, who have the privileges, have raised their kids in some of the best schools, have a good rapport with good judges. They know a doctor by his first name. You know, they've got all the resources around them to talk to the right people and get the right things happening. If in case they've got a son or a daughter that's gotten some sort of trouble, the fact of the matter is
get washed away.
Right, you get washed away, or they don't have to deal with
that strike.
That first strike, right. Unfortunately, a lot of ethnic groups, in this particular case we're talking about African Americans, we've had such a late start in getting those halves.
Right.
You know, many of us don't have access to a CEO of a company, you know, to where we can go in and say, I know this person and have a good idea that we get the job.
Right.
We don't have access to a judge that we know that, okay, he understands why we made the mistake we made so that he can take that into account when he's making a ruling. Even when we look at...
They do.
You're right, and they do. You know, you look at people on juries. You don't see as many people of color, African American or Hispanic or Asian or whatever, on juries. You know, you just don't. So I think that there is a such thing as white privilege, but I think it has more to do with the fact that white has been synonymous with having success. It's been synonymous with having more money. It has been synonymous with having the outlets to do whatever it is. Unfortunately, there are a lot of African Americans and other ethnic groups that have that access. These gentlemen right here I'm with, but it's not as many as it needs to be.
Right.
The more we get our kids to committing to that sense of excellence, that sense of, okay, let me get an education so that I can become a little bit more than what my father was, you know, a little bit more than what my mama was. And let me get an education so that I can own something instead of just work for the company. You know what I'm saying? Until we get to the point where that becomes systematic in the way we teach our kids and the way we go about our lifestyle, that's what it's going to take to stop connecting the privilege with just white.
Right.
1965 Civil Rights Act, right? 1965.
I think so.
65. 63, 65 Civil Rights Act, right? That was only 48 years ago.
It's not long.
Wow.
It's absolutely right.
So just put it in proper perspective. That was 48 years ago. That's it.
Right.
48 years. Affirmative action came, and affirmative action is gone. In 48 years, after 400 years of enslavement,
Right.
this is I'm just putting the great point that he made in proper historical light. We are 48 years removed from that bill. Only 48 years. Some things tried to get put in place, and they've undone them. The Supreme Court had a case on the way here. Supreme Court got a case where can race be a part of considering somebody for college anymore? They sent it back down to the lower court. They didn't rule on it. They sent it back down for the lower court to take care of it. I'm just hearing this on the radio this morning.
Wow.
So if you deny me education for something, or you gave me subpar education for a long time, then yes, indeed it should. Am I asking for a handout, asking for a favor? I don't believe in that. I don't believe. What I do believe in is a level playing field.
Equality.
Equality. That's what's supposed to happen in a democratic society.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to be living in.
Absolutely.
So of course, if you let's put it like this, it's a race. It's a race. We take off. They take off. They run 400 meters before we ever start. Am I gonna overcome that 400 meters in 48 meters?
Right.
That's the proper perspective. So, are the halves going to be associated white? Yes, they are. The majority of them are. Yeah. Now, we had some slow ones that started the race too now.
Yeah.
We got some of them in 48 meters.
Right.
But the overwhelming majority of them are still up there.
Right.
That's not equality.
Right. Point well taken.
Absolutely.
So, in closing, and I hate it because I really wanted to talk about the solutions. So that's what we're going to close out with. I want each one of you guys to suggest a solution to institutional racism, or how can we move forward and progressive as an African American culture, in the African American culture. So we'll start with you.
As I represent African American, but an African American Christian, I think it's the responsibility of every pulpit, every mic, that a person who holds a mic, even to entertainment, to be responsible for what comes out of your mouth when you hold a position such as holding a mic, and you have all these ears that are listening to you. So I believe that we need to be very, very intentional about exposing racism, and it can't be negative. It's not. We can't expose it in a negative sense. I don't care what nobody feels. It is what it is. This is racism, and this is what racism is doing to us moving forward as a nation, as a people, as Christians. We can't win anybody else on this side, because if God is the God of love and Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice of love, and we're all saying that we serve the same, but yet we and all that we have, you know, those that backgrounds that believe in the power of the Holy Ghost, it's not strong enough to change this one factor. That's embarrassing to me as a pastor and what I stand for. I don't believe it. I believe that Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice of love, and I do believe that I've been affected and changed by it. That's one of the reasons I'm here today, and I believe we need to be intentional about our platforms to talk about this, expose this, and do things intentionally on bigger scales to say that we're standing together. You know, it may be one little thing, but we're standing together as a solution to at least expose it to the world that it still exists, and we're trying to do something about it.
Solution, boy. Can't believe you're asking this. I got 3 solutions.
Wow.
Number 1, get rid of all the bigots. All the bigots that are in power, that are holding us back, that are making bad choices in some of these rules, whether it's school system, whether it's political situations or business situations, police force. We got to get rid of all the bigots. All the people that are saying, because of your race, you don't have the rights everybody else has.
Right.
Otherwise, whatever you choose to do, if the bigots stay in power, then you're not going to get anything done, because they're still making all the rules. So if we have stiffer laws about people who actually do all the discriminating and the prejudice and all that stuff, we stamp all that out. That sort of purge, racial purge, I get. That sounds kind of woo, but it's like a witch hunter. But if we can get rid of all the bigots first, now we can go ahead and stop the bloodletting. And I think the second thing would be for more people to have access to each other, to each other's cultures, instead of having this whole prejudgment about what your culture is or what somebody else's culture is, and say, oh, just because it's on TV, that's how they are. I think that we need to have access in this situation. It's a global situation now between social network and the internet. We've got access to talk about and talk to people all over the world. You know, so we need to come together and talk to other people of other races instead of just prejudging and jumping to that conclusion. Last thing is, when it all boils down to it, it's got to be fair and equal.
Right.
If you are saying no because of anything else that it's not fair and equal, then it's something wrong there. It should be the same for everybody. African Americans, Asians, Latinos. It should be fair. It shouldn't be just because, well, you know, you've gone through this. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, there are some African Americans who feel like they should have X, Y, and Z just because they're black.
Just because.
I think that's wrong too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
So I think we've got to be fair. On the other hand, there are some people, because they're African American, they're not allowed certain things too. So we've got to factor that in.
Right.
So as long as we have the
Absolutely.
fairness, we get rid of all the bigots, and we give everybody more access to get and see that culture. I think that would help.
I'm gonna start, surprisingly to most, probably, on my man's point, the church. To me, anybody who has eyes, Sunday morning is the most segregated time in America.
Yes.
Think about it. How many whites in your church? How many different ethnic groups are in your church? Guess what? All the rest of them the same. If you can't worship together and come together under God,
Right.
man, that's a problem. Okay. Number 2, when you walk out of the church, to me, it comes down to politics. It comes down to politics. If you are a fair person, we need you. If you are a fair person, you need to make sure that you put somebody in office who think like you think.
That's right.
Period.
Period.
That's when it changes.
Cool. And I would say too, the families. think that family should play.
Correct.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
It
you
is,
know,
man.
family should play a more important role in establishing those morals and values.
Out the womb.
Yeah, out the womb.
Out the womb.
And I know we all know what the trends are in 2013 as relates to young families, or basically young people having sex. So I personally challenge other men or women that have access to men that are watching this to be a better person. You know what I mean? Be a better man. Take care of your responsibilities. Take care of your families. And instill those values that, you know, we did have a generation in which we were able to spend time with grandparents, and you know that isn't that hadn't ended yet. You know what I'm saying?
It's eroding.
Right. You know, it's eroding. But we still have those values. So all y'all make great points. You got the church. You got holding people accountable. You know what I mean? You got, you know, that thing, politics. And once you get all down to it, to the core of every individual starts in the home. In the home. Right, in the home. So again, I thank you guys. I thank everybody for watching. This is part 3 of the Trinity Outreach's I Was Here Youth Program panel discussion. This is actually kicking off a 6-week program that is targeted for African American men from ages 13 to 18. And the application deadline is July 5th. You can go online at www.iwasheretld.org, and you can contact Kathy Keaton at 228-596-1467. I thank you all for watching. I just want you guys to know that this definitely came from a pure place, an honest place, a truthful place. This was not done to degrade anybody, but we are initiating a conversation. So thanks. This is the Trinity Outreach Corporation's I Was Here Youth Program panel discussion. For more information, visit us at iwasheretld.org, and you can call us at 228-596-1467.